Everyone, thanks so much for joining us today for a virtual conversation about climate change and environmental policy with Congressman Fitzpatrick. My name is Emily Wurzba, and I'm a manager of government relations at the Environmental Defense Fund. So on behalf of EDF and EDF Action, I'm very excited to be having this conversation with such a strong advocate for bipartisan environmental policy in Congress. We're so grateful for your time, Congressman, and I'm really looking forward to a great discussion with some constituents from Pennsylvania's 1st Congressional District. And before we begin, I just want to note that this event is nonpartisan and is not campaign related in any way. But first, I'm going to turn things over to Alicia at the Friends Committee on National Legislation for some brief opening remarks as well. So go ahead, Alicia.
Thanks, Emily. So hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Cannon, and I'm the Program Assistant for Sustainable Energy and Environment at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. I'm joined by my colleague, Ashley Wilson, who heads our Grasstop program at FCNL. And we are so excited to have this opportunity to talk to Representative Fitzpatrick, who is committed to bipartisanship and environmental stewardship and brings a faith perspective to his work on Capitol Hill. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Representative Fitzpatrick, for your time. I am just looking forward to this fruitful discussion with our advocates.
So I'd like to turn it over to you, Congressman, for some brief opening remarks before we get into the questions.
I'm a big believer that humanity has a special responsibility to care for and protect our natural resources at the local, state, and federal level. And I also believe that our natural environment is incredibly important as far as our responsibilities to protect. And climate change, as we all know, and the irresponsible management of our resources put a strain on the health of our communities and on the health of our children as well. Clean air and clean water, I've always viewed, as we all do, to be essential to health, essential to safety, and essential to the development of the next generation of Americans. And I just think it's vital that we never politicize protecting our environment or let partisanship prevent representatives in Washington or in our state capitals across the country from accomplishing what we all know to be our common goals.
My question is, well, as you know, lead exposure in drinking water is extremely harmful to children's brain development, and it's a problem that disproportionately affects low-income children and children of color, and it also affects adults' cardiovascular health. So can you explain what Congress has done to clean up lead from our water?
Yeah, it's a great question, a very important one as well. I'm an original co-sponsor of a bill. It's HR, I think it's 3842. It's called the Preventing Lead Poisoning Act, 2019. It was introduced last year, which would require a state child health plan to include certain lead screening coverage and also to codify such requirements under the Medicaid program, which is also very important for coverage purposes. And what this would do, it essentially would make sure that we are looking after the health of society's most vulnerable, particularly our lower income children and our children from low income families. I've also supported, and I'm a big believer in this, robust funding for replacement of lead service lines to ensure that tap water is contaminant free and free of any contaminants, especially lead. And as many of you know, the clean drinking water issue has been one of my top priorities since I got to Congress. Every person in our nation and in the world, for that matter, has the right to safe, clean drinking water. And we're going to continue the fight for sure.
What can the federal government do in the future to ensure that cancer-causing agents are kept out of our air and water?
Well, a good start would be that if more states had adopted a provision like the state of Pennsylvania does. In Pennsylvania, it is written into the Constitution. It is a constitutional right in Pennsylvania to clean air and clean water. And I think we ought to do that federally. I really do. And I hope that every state does that as well. And again, as the co-chair of the task force that I had referenced earlier, we put a lot of pressure on the EPA to ensure that they continue to work towards cleaner water for all Americans. We're fighting for a what they call an MCL, a maximum contaminant level, for a lot of these contaminants, because it makes no sense. I mean, I referenced PFAS earlier, but it applies to any contaminant, any carcinogen in water, that you not have a patchwork of different standards as you go from one municipality to the next. And in terms of air quality, been a big advocate in combating poisonous mercury pollution by keeping the mercury and air toxic standards strong, which is incredibly important. They have to remain intact, and we must keep our communities and our families safe from methane pollution as well, which is a key driver to climate change, by the way. And also by blocking any harmful methane regulatory rollbacks. I'm also a co-sponsor of another bill relating to air quality. It's the Bipartisan Super Pollutants Act, which aims to slow climate change by regulating black carbon, hydrofluorocarbons, methane, and some of the most potent greenhouse gases. These short-lived climate pollutants, also called super pollutants, are significantly more potent than carbon dioxide. So it's got to be an all hands on deck situation.